Rena never believed in the idea that fear could arrive quietly. She always assumed terror would announce itself with noise, violence, or chaos. Screams, crashes, breaking glass, something sudden enough to justify panic. But the thing that changed her life came in the form of a knock. Soft, patient, almost polite. She lived alone on the third floor of a narrow apartment building at the edge of the city. It was the kind of place people moved into when they were trying to save money or disappear for a while. The walls were thin, the lights flickered in the hallway, and the elevator had been broken for years. Still, Rena liked it. It was quiet, predictable, safe enough. The first knock came at 12:47 a.m. She was half asleep on the couch, television murmuring low, when the sound pulled her upright. It was gentle, 3 taps, slow, deliberate. She checked her phone, annoyed more than afraid. No one she knew would come at that hour. She stood, walked to the door, and pressed her eye to the peephole. The hallway was empty. She opened the door anyway, expecting maybe a drunk neighbor or someone at the wrong apartment. The hallway lights buzzed faintly. No footsteps, no movement. She stood there longer than she meant to, feeling foolish, then closed the door and locked it. She laughed at herself and went back to sleep. The second knock came the next night at the exact same time. 12:47 a.m. This time she was awake, brushing her teeth, when she heard it. The same 3 taps. Same rhythm. Same softness. Her stomach tightened. Coincidence, she told herself. Someone probably knocking on the wrong door again. But when she looked through the peephole, the hallway was empty once more. She did not open the door that night. Instead, she waited, listening. No footsteps followed. No elevator noise. No doors opening or closing. It was as if whoever had knocked had simply vanished the moment they were done. Over the next week, the knocking continued. Always at 12:47 a.m. Always 3 slow taps. Always silence afterward. Rena stopped sleeping well. She began leaving lights on. She checked the locks obsessively. She told herself it was a prank, maybe a neighbor trying to be funny, but no one ever reacted when she mentioned it casually. Her neighbors were distant people who avoided eye contact and conversation. No one admitted to hearing the knocks. One night, after the 7th knock, she shouted through the door, "Stop it!" Her voice echoed down the hallway, thin and nervous. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, very softly, someone knocked again. 3 taps. Rena froze. Her mouth went dry. She backed away from the door slowly, heart pounding. She did not sleep at all that night. The voice came a few nights later. It was subtle, almost easy to miss. After the knocking, she heard someone speak from the other side of the door. "Rena," the voice said. It was calm, male, unfamiliar. She did not answer. "Rena," it repeated, closer this time, as if the speaker had leaned toward the door. "I just need to ask you something." Her name had never been on the door. She had never spoken to anyone in the building long enough for them to learn it. She pressed herself against the far wall of the living room, shaking, phone clenched in her hand. She considered calling the police, but what would she say? Someone knocked. Someone said her name. No proof. No sound now. The voice did not return that night. The next evening, she came home early and waited. She sat in the dark with all the lights off, watching the door from across the room. At exactly 12:47 a.m., the knocking came again. Her heart raced, but she stayed silent. This time, the peephole darkened. Someone was standing directly in front of it. She gasped softly, covering her mouth. She could not see the person's face, only the shadow blocking the light behind them. Slowly, deliberately, the shadow leaned closer. The knocking stopped. "You're closer now," the voice said, muffled by the door. "That helps." Rena screamed and ran to the bedroom, slamming the door shut behind her. She stayed there until morning, curled on the floor, convinced that at any moment the bedroom door would open. But it never did. The building manager dismissed her concerns. There were no security cameras, no reports from other tenants, no evidence of anyone entering the building late at night. He suggested stress, lack of sleep. Maybe she was imagining things. She knew she wasn't. The final knock came on a night when she was packing to leave. She had decided to move out without notice. She could not take it anymore. Her bags were by the door. The apartment felt different, tense, like it was holding its breath. 12:47 a.m. 3 taps. This time, she did not hesitate. She grabbed her phone and opened the door, screaming for help before she could stop herself. The hallway was empty. but the floor was wet. Bare footprints led away from her door, down the hall, stopping just short of the stairwell. They were too long. The toes were wrong, stretched, smeared, as if whatever had made them had dragged its feet unnaturally. Her phone buzzed in her hand. A message from an unknown number. "You opened it too soon. Now I know where you sleep." Rena moved out that night. She stayed with friends, then family, then nowhere long enough to unpack. She never returned to that building. She never answered unknown calls. She never slept without lights on again. Even now, years later, she wakes every night at 12:47 a.m., heart racing, ears straining. Sometimes, in the quiet, she swears she hears 3 soft taps coming from inside the room. And that is why Rena still can't sleep. Hamid used to love driving at night. The road was quieter then, stretched wide and empty, like it belonged only to him. After long shifts at the distribution warehouse, the drive home was the one place where his thoughts could settle. No supervisors watching, no coworkers talking, just the hum of tires against asphalt and the low murmur of the radio. The highway cut through a long strip of undeveloped land between 2 industrial zones. No houses, no shops, just fields, broken fencing, and patches of trees that leaned toward the road like they were listening. During the day, it felt dull and ordinary. At night, it felt longer, darker, wrong in ways he couldn't explain. The first voice appeared 3 weeks after he switched to the night shift. He was halfway home, windows down, radio off, when he heard someone say his name. Hamid. It came from outside the car. He hit the brakes instinctively, heart slamming against his ribs. The road behind him was empty. Headlights stretched uselessly into the dark. He rolled the window up, suddenly aware of how exposed he was. "Hello," he called, hating how small his voice sounded. No answer came. The fields were still. Insects chirred like nothing had happened. He waited for a full minute before driving again, convincing himself it was exhaustion, a trick of the mind after too many long nights. The next night, it happened again. This time, the voice came closer. "Hamid, wait." He didn't stop the car. He accelerated, pulse racing, eyes flicking to the rearview mirror. For a moment, he thought he saw someone standing at the edge of the road. Tall, thin. But when another car passed in the opposite direction and its headlights swept the area, there was nothing there. On the third night, the voice changed. It sounded like his brother. "Don't leave me out here," it said softly. Hamid nearly crashed. His brother had moved overseas years ago. They hadn't spoken in months, not since a fight that had ended badly. The voice was perfect. The tone, the slight hitch in the words. The way it said his name like it was half a joke, half a warning. He drove straight home and locked himself inside, shaking. He tried calling his brother, but the number went to voicemail. He left a message he didn't remember recording. After that, the voices came every night. Sometimes they called his name. Sometimes they asked questions. "Why don't you stop? Aren't you tired? You always slow down here." They never shouted, never begged. They spoke with patience, as if they knew he would eventually listen. Hamid began taking different routes, even though it added time to his commute. But the voices followed. They appeared on side roads, at intersections. Once, impossibly, inside the car itself, whispering from the back seat. He stopped using the radio. The voices learned to slip into the static. He stopped answering phone calls while driving. The voices learned to mimic ringtones. Sleep became impossible. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the road stretching endlessly forward, heard footsteps matching his speed just out of sight. He began losing time. Entire sections of his drive vanished from memory. He would arrive home without recalling the last 10 minutes. One night, rain hammered the highway so hard it blurred the world into streaks of silver. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. Hamid slowed, gripping the wheel tightly, heart racing. That was when the voices spoke together. Dozens of them, all saying his name. They came from every direction. The fields, the trees, the road itself. Overlapping tones, male and female, young and old, all perfectly synchronized. His ears rang. His vision tunneled. He screamed and slammed the brakes. The car skidded, spinning halfway before stopping sideways across the lane. The voices stopped. In the sudden silence, something stepped into the headlights. It looked like a person at first glance. Same height, same shape, but it stood wrong. Its head tilted too far to one side. Its arms hung too long. Its face was a blur of shadow, except for its mouth. The mouth smiled. It opened and spoke in his own voice. "You always stop here." Hamid locked the doors, sobbing, fumbling for his phone. The thing took one slow step forward, then another. Its movements were smooth but delayed, like it was copying how people walked without fully understanding it. He floored the gas. The car lurched forward, narrowly missing the figure as it passed. In the mirror, he saw it turn, watching him leave. It raised a hand and waved. He didn't drive home that night. He drove until sunrise, until the city streets filled with people and noise and light. He called in sick, then quit his job the same day. He stopped driving at night entirely. Months passed. The voices faded. The nightmares did not. Even now, when Hamid closes his eyes, he hears tires on wet asphalt. Hears someone matching his footsteps when he walks alone. Sometimes, late at night, his phone lights up with an incoming call from his own number. He never answers, because he knows some roads remember the people who listen to them. And some voices never forget how you sound. Nal did not believe a room could watch you. She believed in stress, in exhaustion, in the way loneliness could warp small details into threats. That was what she told herself when she answered the listing for a furnished room on the east side of the city. Cheap rent, short-term lease, no questions asked. It felt temporary, which was exactly what she needed. The house was old but clean, divided into rented rooms with shared spaces no one used. The owner never showed her his face. He left the key under a brick and instructions taped to the door. Room at the end of the hall. Rent due weekly. No visitors overnight. The first night passed without incident. The second night, Nal noticed the chair. It sat in the corner of the room near the window. Wooden. Simple. She was certain it hadn't been there before. She would have remembered it. She had leaned her suitcase against that wall. Now the chair occupied the exact space. She moved it closer to the desk and went to sleep. In the morning, it was back in the corner. She frowned at it, unsettled, then laughed quietly at herself. Shared houses were strange. People moved things. She hadn't locked her door. That night, the room smelled different. Faintly metallic, like cold coins or rain on old pipes. She opened the window, but the smell lingered. When she lay down, she felt watched. Not from the window, not from the door, from the walls themselves, as if the room were paying attention. She barely slept. On the fourth night, the mirror changed. It was small, mounted above the dresser. She used it every morning. But that night, as she brushed her teeth in the shared bathroom, she caught her reflection moving a second too late. Her hand dropped. Her reflection followed after a pause, smiling faintly. She spun around, heart racing. The bathroom was empty. Back in her room, the mirror looked normal again. She covered it with a towel before bed, hands shaking. The dreams began after that. She dreamed of the room breathing, of the walls expanding and contracting slowly, like lungs. She dreamed of standing in the corner, watching herself sleep from the chair. She dreamed of hearing her own voice whispering things she had never said aloud. Every morning, something was different. The chair moved. The bed shifted slightly. The window latch loosened. Small changes. Deliberate. As if the room were testing how much she would notice. Nal started documenting everything. She took photos with timestamps, wrote notes, measured distances between objects. The changes continued anyway, ignoring her proof. One night, she came home late and found muddy footprints on the floor. They began near the bed. They ended at the door. The prints were barefoot, too narrow. The toes pressed deep into the floorboards, as if whoever had made them had been heavier than they looked. She slept with the light on after that. The house was silent at night. Too silent. No footsteps. No plumbing sounds. No other tenants moving. She realized she had never actually seen anyone else living there. Only closed doors. Only quiet. On the eighth night, the room spoke. Not aloud. Inside her head. You remember this place. The thought slipped into her mind as she sat on the bed, staring at the wall. She stood up abruptly, breathing hard. No, she whispered. I don't. The wall across from her bore a faint mark now, like a stain beneath the paint. The shape of a hand. Memories began surfacing. Unwanted. Sharp. A different room. Years ago. A rented space. Cheap. Temporary. A night she tried to forget. Shouting. A door locked from the outside. Someone pounding, screaming for help while she stayed silent on the other side. She had told herself she hadn't known, that it wasn't her responsibility, that she couldn't be sure what was happening. The room seemed to lean closer. You stayed quiet then too. Nal grabbed her bag and ran for the door. The handle would not turn. The lock clicked uselessly beneath her hand. Panic surged. The lights flickered. The chair scraped softly across the floor behind her. Slow, patient. She did not turn around. The walls began to change. The paint bubbled, peeled. Beneath it, shapes emerged. Fingerprints, scratches, names carved shallowly, over and over again, layered into the surface. She recognized one of them. Her own. No, 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 she thought, backing away until she hit the bed. You slept through it before, the room whispered. You can do it again. The door opened on its own. The hallway beyond was dark, longer than it should have been, stretching impossibly far. Doors lined the walls, each one closed. Behind some of them, she heard muffled sounds. Crying, breathing, fists hitting wood. Noel stepped back into the room instead. The door slammed shut. The room grew warm, heavy. The air thickened until breathing hurt. The chair tipped over, falling toward her. The mirror towel slid off, revealing her reflection standing calmly while she screamed. Her reflection spoke. You remember now. She woke up on the floor in daylight. The room was normal again. No marks. No footprints. No chair in the corner. Her phone showed 3 missed calls from an unknown number, all placed at the same time during the night. There were no messages. She left immediately. Didn't pack. Didn't look back. Months later, Noel still wakes gasping for air, convinced the walls are closing in. She avoids rentals. Avoids quiet rooms. Avoids mirrors at night. Sometimes, when she sits alone too long, she feels the shape of a chair behind her. Sometimes, she hears a voice in her head, calm and familiar, reminding her that places remember what people try to forget, and that some rooms never let you leave completely. That is why Noel still can't sleep.